Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Honeymoon Hotel, released in 1934. It's the 73rd in the series and directed by Duval. You can find this as an extra on the Footlight Parade Blu-ray, although for some reason it's not in HD there. Since then a HD version has come out, and the restoration is fair. I guess they just didn't have the better elements to work from, but hey, looks alright. It's just not going to be wow quality. Now, in case you haven't seen this one, I can't show you the full cartoon here due to copyright on YouTube, but it's pretty straightforward. We're in Bugtown, we see a couple, they end up getting married, they go to the Honeymoon Hotel where there's an unusually high number of peeping toms around, including the moon itself, and they somehow cause a fire, and that's pretty much it. So it's a bit of a strange cartoon, and we'll definitely go through it here. So first up, you're going to see a re-edit of the original audio commentary I did before I had to take that down due to a copyright request from Warner Brothers and all that jazz. And then you hear some new thoughts from me, and then after that you'll hear from my good friend Manny, the tuning tenor, who will go through the music, as this is a Merry Melodies, and obviously the music is the main focus here. So grab some popcorn and enjoy. I like the fact that they do the lyric sheet right here. So when people would have seen this movie in the theatre back in the day, you know, this would have been like a sing-along, and people could obviously join in with the tune, which would have been great, especially during the Depression. And right away, you're going to notice something different than the previous commentaries, and that's, of course, this being in colour. But it's not quite as lush as what Disney was doing at the time, and the reason for that is because this used the process called a 2-strip Cinecolor, as opposed to Disney's 3-strip Technicolor, and Disney had the rights to the 3-strip Technicolor locked away for 3 years, and so for the other studios wanting to do colour, like in this case, they had to resort to the more inferior method. But I don't think cinemagoers would have been too fussed at the time. Not as lush as what you would get out of a 3-strip Technicolor. I will say that this particular short on the surface looks like an innocent little lovey-dovey sort of story between these two ladybugs, but it ends up being very cheeky, to say the least. Now, if you notice at the check-in desk, there's a little gag there which I think would go over a lot of kids' heads, and that's of course Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I mean, how many people would be checking in rather, as Mr. and Mrs. Smith, just like that. And there's even a stamp because they know that everyone wants to do that. I thought that was pretty funny. You know, it's obvious what these two are trying to do, and of course everyone else is trying to make them feel welcome, and you think this is an innocent little scene. You know, they're singing along and they say, yep, we're gonna keep you guys warm, we're gonna make you comfortable. Look what they do shortly once they close the door. It's so weird. They all try to peep in, and even this one's got this telescope in his pants, and this police officer, sheriff guy comes around, and he's only in this particular scene. And it's just really bizarre. And is he abusing his authority to peep in at the newlyweds? That's pretty funny there. And he doesn't stop there. He's just strutting around, and he's trying to peep in at all these people, obviously having some fun times behind those locked doors. Even the moon's a peeping Tom. I mean, and the moon even says, I can see everything you do. So their kissing is so hard that it literally creates a fire. Like, no kidding. Like, I thought it was just an expression, obviously, of them being in love, but no, they literally cause a fire. Yeah, they actually cause a fire. How? I don't know. They're still gonna, do something. I'm sure we all know what that is. Do not disturb. And and watch their expressions as they look. Yep, give us a wink. Yep, baby, give us a wink. So those are my original thoughts, and yeah, revisiting this again, especially now that we got this new restoration, I'm looking at it and going, wow, this one really is one of those risque ones. And since the Hays Code had just come in, this one must have really slipped under the radar before the Hays Code really got into this sort of stuff. And I've already pointed out a few things beforehand, but if you look at a lot of the stuff that's in this short, there's a few things I didn't even notice before. You've got the whole risque joke of the alimony dodger in the jail, and of course the guard bug is so happy doing his job. I guess he's happy being a guard. But anyway, that sort of joke you wouldn't hear in a future short, at least while the Hays Code was around. And then you even see a bug reading a book that says how to make love. Heck, that whole scene leading up to us seeing that book, I don't know if we'd even have a scene with so many characters kissing at the one time. Maybe the Hays Code would be like, whoa, that's too many people kissing. But anyway, I don't know how far they went in that regard. Anyway, as I mentioned in the commentary track, I liked how it opened in a similar way to what a lot of the sing-alongs would be, because back in the day, you'd pay your entry fee, you'd go into the theatre, and you'd get maybe a few movies, but you get a lot of short subjects as well, newsreels, and sometimes you even get a little sing-along, so you'd get like a bouncy ball sort of thing where you would follow along with the lyrics and everyone in the theatre would sing along. And what I can see here, that this is pretty much a play on that. And of course, had they seen the movie where this song had been from, they might have gotten a bit of a chuckle out of it while trying to sing. It's like, hey, wait a minute, these are not the lyrics, because as Manny will explain in his music section, yeah, it's the melody of Honeymoon Hotel in the beginning especially, but it's different lyrics. Now, I do like this whole bug town, and it amazes me that these artists can design these entire towns and all these different types of characters with all these different jobs, and of course the designs of the bugs themselves and how they move and so on, just for a few minutes. And we don't see this set ever again in any future cartoons, and it's just amazing how quick they were able to come up with all this stuff just for a few minutes of just establishing this town where this couple comes from, and that's it. And there's a lot of nice little details, and yeah, this is not the first time you see this sort of thing. Other studios did this sort of stuff. Even at Disney, they did a few bug shorts where they would leave it at like some sort of a makeshift town made of rubbish, and they cleverly used the different elements and devices to go about their daily business. Like here, there's a fire raging towards the end, we see like a comb used as a ladder, that kind of stuff. And this sort of a theme would be used in a lot of shorts, and even more towards present day, or close to present day. Bug's Life, I just realised it came out in, 1998? Whoops, that's getting on too, gee. My advice to you all, don't get old, okay? And of course, I have to point out, I'd like the touch of the post office being a literal letterbox. But anyway, that's just a little silly thing there. Now, with that car that was saying goodnight... Good night! But that car, I'm wondering what the deal is with that. That was just such a bizarre moment there. Just, okay, the car just comes to life and is good luck. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. And since watching it again, fresh eyes, I'm guessing that this particular cop or officer, whoever, is probably just someone making sure that the people here are actually married when having their honeymoon fun, so to speak. But I don't know, it still comes across as very creepy, and for someone who's trying to be more moralistic, I'm assuming again that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to make sure that, I suppose, the right people are in this honeymoon hotel. He seems to enjoy spitting on the ground. Alright, whatever. But he does get his comeuppance, though. I do like the thing with the two doors where one actually ends up spitting on him, and then the other one turns into an arm and knocks him out, and then the two shake hands. By the way, the two arms shaking hand thing, Earl Duval will end up using that in his last Warner Brothers short, Buddy's Garage. Now, again, why does the moon even care? Where it's like, I can see you, and all that stuff, yeah? Why does the moon even care? They're married anyway. I don't know, this is just truly bizarre, but anyway, that was my first thought. I don't know, I can't say much about that one, to be honest. But I do have to wonder, how did this literal fire get started? Okay, you'd think it's a whole symbolism thing, but they somehow create a fire, and yet in a later scene, they're running around as though the fire had already started. It's a bit confusing, but whatever. I'm guessing this particular short's not meant for nerds like me to overanalyze, but yeah, it is truly bizarre as to how that actually occurred. But speaking of the fire, I do like the effects of the fire there. I guess maybe the one to show off some of the new color capabilities of this two-strip Cinecolor process that they acquired, which they would only use for two shorts. They'd use it for this one and then Beauty and the Beast and go back to black and white. So now you're going to hear from my good friend Manny Cruz, the 2D tenor. The next part's actually edited by my good friend Fox and the Fix. He wanted to jump in and have a go at some of the editing. I thought, why not? Let's mix it up. And it's a great way to see how different people approach editing. I really do like how he's taking his approach on this. I thought it was pretty clever, and I really wish I did have the time to be able to edit in this way, but unfortunately time is restrictive. But hey, let me know what you think in the comments in regards to his editing and of course Manny's content as well. So take it away, Manny.
Hi everyone, this is Manny Cruz, the 2D tenor, coming at you with the latest edition of It's Time for Manny's Music Time with music trivia for you today. Bum! For the 1934 Merry Melody Honeymoon Hotel, directed by Earl Duvall. This one's a pretty important one in Warner Brothers history, as if you already didn't know, because probably Anthony will already bring it up by this point in the commentary, but this is the first color Warner Brothers cartoon. The first Merry Melody and the first one in general. Looney Tunes would not have color until 1942's The Hepcat, but this is the first one of all of them in the two-strip Cinecolor process. This cartoon and Beauty and the Beast, which I'll talk about in another commentary, used the two-strip Cinecolor process because at the time there was two-strip Technicolor, which used hues of red and green, and then there was, you could say, full color with three-strip Technicolor. But Walt Disney had an exclusive right to that process that eventually, by 1935, other studios had the ability to use three-strip Technicolor. But this is pretty much Warner Brothers, Leon Schlesinger, and the rest of the crew just dipping their toes into the proverbial color pool, so to speak. And this is a pretty charming one. This is near the end of Earl Duvall's tenure. He did not last very long at Leon Schlesinger Studios. He got into a drunken argument with Schlesinger and he was canned. And based on the cartoons that he did, Buddy's Beer Garden, Sitting on a Backyard Fence, and this one, it's definitely the more interesting ones of the early Schlesinger period. And it's another example of what could have been. So let's talk about music, shall we? So the cues themselves in the cartoon, we have several. So first off, we have the title track, obviously, Honeymoon Hotel by Harry Warren and Al Dubin. So during the opening titles, obviously you hear a little bit of the title track, Honeymoon Hotel, and near the very end of the opening titles, you hear a very brief snippet of The Wedding March by Felix Mendelssohn. That's a da-ba-ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-ba. It's like a blink and you miss it kind of thing. So the Wedding March itself is actually a piece of incidental music that was written in 1842 for the Shakespeare play A Midsummer Night's Dream. And in case you don't know what incidental music is, think of background music. Think of it like what a film score serves its purpose. It's the background music for the production. You know, when I was going through the cue sheets and I was like, wait a minute, was the wedding march in this cartoon? Because later on you'll hear another famous wedding piece. But then when I went back, oh, it's in the opening titles. It's so brief. If you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. You hear Honeymoon Hotel a lot with different lyrics, very clever lyrics. I was getting a kick out of the establishing Bugtown and all the different things. I got a kick out of the Alimony Dodger. And that kind of goes with the whole... This cartoon is, I don't want to say it's risque, but you could say some of the subject matter, considering that this was around the time that, you know, the Hays Code was really coming down on Hollywood. And some of the jokes, this definitely leans more towards the adult side of humor, especially with some of the weird voyeurism that was going on in this cartoon once it got to the hotel. But hey, you do you. You hear a little bit of By a Waterfall by Sammy Fine. That's featured in the scene when the love bugs are in the canoe. And By a Waterfall originally premiered in Footlight Parade. And speaking of Footlight Parade, I forgot Honeymoon Hotel is also from the same film. The bridal chorus, you hear that during the scene when the love bugs decide to get married. That was originally from an opera by Richard Wagner called Lohengrin. It was written in 1850. And in my notes, I wrote, after the wedding, duh, you hear the bridal chorus. So that's why I got a little confused. Was it the wedding march or the... Pretty much, the wedding march is... That's a wedding march. Mendelssohn, he wrote that 18. He actually wrote that earlier than Wagner, 1842. And the bridal chorus is "Here comes a bride, all dressed in white," and all that jazz. And it was originally featured in the opera Lohengrin from Wagner, as I said before, 1850. Later on, as the lovebirds just start heading over towards their honeymoon, you hear a little snippet of "In My Merry Oldsmobile," and that song was written by Gus Edwards and Vincent Patrick Bryan. It was published in 1905. It was originally sung by Billy Murray, if I'm not mistaken. Not Bill Murray, not Peter Venkman from Ghostbusters or Groundhog Day or SNL or any other brilliant comedian. In My Merry Oldsmobile, in this cartoon, I just love the sound of the baritone sax that's playing the melody of the song. And a lot of these earlier Bernard Brown and Norman Spencer, and if I'm not mistaken, some of the Frank Marsalis scores as well. You hear a good amount of baritone sax. I used to play the baritone sax in high school and a little bit of college, so I love that instrument. I miss it. So we get to the scene where the two lovebirds. First, you have that whole weird scene where you have the peeping Tom with the really cool mustache just trying to get a glimpse. Oh, goodness. Anyway, so after that whole scene, you start hearing the song "You're Getting to Be a Habit with Me," which is another composition by Harry Warren and Al Dubin. It was written in 1932, and it was from another film, 42nd Street, which I've spoken about in other Warner Brothers cartoons. And as I said before, Warren and Dubin, their music is getting a ton of mileage, not only with Carl Stalling, but with his predecessors. And when I was doing research into the song itself, I found a recording of it done by Frank Sinatra, my fellow Jersey native. It was a really nice song. It was originally sung by B.B. Daniels in the film 42nd Street, but I was really digging the Sinatra version. I think it was Songs for Swingin' Lovers, if I'm not mistaken. That was the album that Sinatra recorded in the 50s. I have that album. So here comes another song from Footlight Parade. We have "Ah, the Moon is Here" by Sammy Fine and Irving Cahal. And take a wild guess who sings that song. It's the moon. Huh? So after you hear a little snippet of both "You're Getting to Be a Habit with Me" as well as "Honeymoon Hotel," the moon decides to serenade, and then he starts blushing red, which made me laugh.
Ah, the moon is here. You're in love, I fear. I can see everything that you do.
Is my face red?
And near the end of the cartoon, after the love bugs, things get a little heated. Very risque for 1930s, I'll say. When the hotel catches on fire and the Bugtown Fire Department starts coming in to save the day, you hear the song "Summer is Over, So Is My Dream of Love" by Joe Burke and Cliff Friend. So let me talk briefly about those guys. So first off, there's Joe Burke. His full name was Joseph Aloysius, Aloysius Burke. So Joe Burke. He was born March 18th, 1884 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He was a composer and pianist. He wrote the song Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me, and Al Dubin, sounds familiar. I really got to talk about him in one of these commentaries. But Burke wrote the music, and Dubin was the lyricist, and they did that song in 1929. And if you're Looney Tune history, Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me was used in the first Looney Tune cartoon ever, Sinking in the Bathtub with Bosco in 1930. Joe Burke, he passed away in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania on June 9th, 1950. And also, I'm thinking Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me. So, funny little side story. So, I'm a fan of SpongeBob the first few seasons. Pretty much, I guess, before Steven Hillenburg left the show as executive producer. And right around the time when the movie was finished. So, it's like 2003 for the first, let's say, 3-4 seasons. Awesome cartoon. Very heavily influenced by Looney Tunes. But in the first episode of the show, I don't remember the name of the short itself, but it's when all the fish start coming into the Krusty Krab. And SpongeBob has to start making all the Krabby Patties for them. And you start hearing in the background the song Living in the Sunlight, Loving in the Moonlight. And it was performed by the American singer Tiny Tim, who was in reality a really tall man. And he sung with his head voice, loving in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time, or something like that. I know some people call it falsetto, but I like to use the term head voice now. He was naturally a baritone. So that recording was used in the cartoon. He recorded sometime in the 1960s. And that was one of the reasons why that first episode of SpongeBob was having difficulty being released on DVD for some time with music licensing and all that jazz. Years ago, I started listening to that recording of Living in the Sunlight, Loving in the Moonlight, and I saw that another song that was on that album that Tiny Tim recorded was Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me. And just hearing this really tall man who wasn't quite a looker, but hey, he was talented. He's strumming a ukulele and singing in head voice, and he was doing Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me. And look, years later, I find out it was in the first Bosco cartoon, and now here we are talking about the composer of that song, the way the world of music works. So, going back to Summer's Over, so is my dream of love, and sadly, I say summer's over. I'm recording this on August 12th, but for me, summer's practically over because the sun is setting later, pretty much living in the northern hemisphere as opposed to my buddy Anthony, who's in the southern hemisphere. He's in his winter, I'm in this summer, and I'm going to be sad because I'm a summer guy. Summer's almost over. Boo hoo hoo. So I could listen to this song as well as Summer's Almost Gone. So going back to the song, Cliff Friend is a very important songwriter in Warner Brothers history. He didn't write a lot of tunes that were used in Warner Brothers cartoons. One of them in particular I do really like, When My Dreamboat Comes Home. I think it was the Bing Crosby Bird from Swooner Crooner, Frank Tassel, 1944. He's singing that song. I'm trying to do my best impression. When my dreamboat comes home. Anthony's probably going to put a clip of the cartoon. He'll do a better job. So Cliff Friend, he was born October 1st, 1893 in Cincinnati, Ohio. And he actually did go to the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. For several years, he wanted to become a concert pianist, but then he got tuberculosis and he started shifting over towards songwriting. And I know CM because I auditioned there for graduate school. I didn't get accepted, and I'm happy I didn't because they rubbed me the wrong way. They came across as a bunch of snobs. I went to the University of Houston instead, and I got a really good education in my master's. But anyway, I digress. And Cliff Friend, he wrote stuff for Hollywood here and there. And like I said, When My Dreamboat Comes Home. But one song in particular that he wrote with co-writer Dave Franklin is super duper important in Warner Brothers history. And what is that song? 1937's The Merry-Go-Round Broke Down. The Future theme song, Future as in, I'm talking about a cartoon from 1934, the Future theme song of the Looney Tunes themselves. So he's a big deal. So there were some other things that I was going to talk about in terms of the songwriters and the films themselves, but I don't want to be redundant. If you want to learn more about Harry Warren, please listen to the commentary that I did for a great big bunch of you. If you want to learn a little bit more about Sammy Fine, Irving Cahal, Fine was the songwriter for By a Waterfall, and Irving Cahal, the lyricist. Check out the commentary for One Step Ahead of My Shadow. And if you want to learn a little bit more about Footlight Parade, because that movie, they took tons of songs from that film. Frank Marsalis, Bernard Brown, and Norman Spencer really used a lot of those songs in 1933, 1944. You got, By a Waterfall, You're Getting to Be a Habit Out of Me, Honeymoon Hotel, Sitting on a Backyard Fence, One Step Ahead of My Shadow. There's a lot. That movie had a ton of hit songs that was used in Warner Brothers shorts. But if you want to learn a little bit more about the movie itself, and I will watch it eventually. I have it ready to play, but I just haven't gotten around to it. I've only seen snippets of it. Please check out the commentary that I recorded for Sitting on a Backyard Fence. And it's a bummer that as I'm recording this, I recorded the commentary for Sitting on a Backyard Fence a few weeks ago. And just recently, like yesterday, they revealed that they have a restored high-definition copy of that cartoon. That it was on the Movies channel that I think I get here in New Jersey for free. But I almost never watch television, so hopefully one day it'll be released on physical media. So anywho, those are my thoughts on Honeymoon Hotel, a very important cartoon in Warner Brothers history. Obviously not a standout one in terms of longevity or funniness. It's charming. It's definitely one of the better cartoons of this time period. But it definitely holds a lot of historical significance because of the fact it is the first color Warner Brothers cartoon. But it was a fun watch. Cool musical stuff that I dug up for you all, and I hope you enjoy it. And thanks again for listening. Please don't forget to follow me on social media at the Toonie Tenor, the TONEY TENOR. And it's always a blast recording these Manny's Music Time commentaries for Anthony. And I hope you enjoy, and just keep on listening and watching cartoons. Have a good time. I hope to see you sometime at the Honeymoon Hotel, because I'm not married, but maybe one day I will. Maybe I'll go, and if I ever get married, I'll sing the song, and hopefully my future wife won't strangle me for this. No, that's a little harsh. But by that point, she'll realize, yeah, I married this huge cartoon nerd, and he's also a musician. So I know what I was getting myself into. All right, folks. Have a good night, and so long, folks. I think that's what the bug did at the end. I don't remember. It's late. Good night. Bye.
So long, folks.
So thank you, Manny, and once again, let me know what you guys think of that editing in the comments below. But as for the score for this cartoon, look, this one, of course, will be more well known for being the first color Warner Brothers short. Let's not kid ourselves. That's what this will be mainly be. But it's a little more than that, I think. It's not some kind of, I guess, masterpiece or anything, but again, it's a nice little gem for this period of time where, once all the Vol goes, most of the shorts we're going to see up until Tex Avery arrives are going to be just average, with a few bright spots here and there, including, of course, Buddy's Bearcats. Chef's kiss to that one, of course. But in all, look, this one gets a 7 out of 10 for me. It's very funny in the right and the wrong ways. It's very bizarre, but I don't know, I like this one. It's quite fun. It's not my go-to short, but hey, out of all the early ones, this one's definitely one of the better ones in my opinion. So, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.